So, State of Unreal was today, and they spent the majority of the time talking about update 5.8, and I was not really sure what to expect, but I think overall it was actually pretty good. Other YouTubers like Unreal Sensei and Unreal University did a really good job going through kind of a lot of the major talking points and covering a lot of the features, and they're much smarter than me, and I'm not going to beat that same dead horse. So I'm going to talk about the things that kind of excited me the most and some other things that they didn't really cover, more specifically talking about our best friend, Unreal Engine 6. One of the new things that they came swinging out of the gate with was the new mesh terrain system, which before kind of allowed you to sculpt up and down, but now they've made it to where you can kind of sculpt cliffs out of things. You can carve out caves inside of your terrains, which I think is huge. I'm using a little bit of that in some of my projects, but hopefully down the road, that'll be something that I can use. One of the other things that I really enjoyed, and it's the silliest thing, was the procedural vegetation editor, as they're calling it. And if you look at the highlight video, it's just a tree growing through the different phases, you know, as a little sproutling up to a normal sized tree. And something about it, I don't know if it's just seeing it change the growth patterns, but something about that made me so excited. I have no idea why that of all things excited me the most, but that did. And then if you go over to Fab, they even already have some assets for them. Tons of different trees already. I have no idea why that of all things excites me. That seems like that would be really good if you're making like a farming simulator kind of game or some kind of survival mechanic where you need vegetation to grow and go through kind of a life cycle. Seems like that. I mean, it seems like something that would be really easy to implement on your own. There's something about it that just, I don't know. I find it so unique. I guess if you were doing it and implementing it on a mass scale or maybe on like a seasonal scale where your game had seasons and your trees had to go through different vegetation cycles, it would be really cool. I don't know. I saw it and I was just like, oh, that's so cool. Out of everything else they showed, this was the thing that I was the most excited for. One of the other things is they're now allowing you to edit your characters, to sculpt and edit your characters within Unreal. So you can change facial animations, you can increase nose sizes, you can adjust eyebrows. Is it really going to be amazing? I don't know. I've found some of the things in Unreal when going through different workflow cycles to be a little bit more difficult and easier to just go back to Blender, go back to Substance Paint or whatever it is and edit and correct it there. I am 100% all about productive workflows. It really bothers me when something doesn't work transferring between a different program. My entire workflow right now is adjusted and tweaked perfectly that I don't need to make these little annoying minute changes between programs in order to get it to work to the next one. Everything just flows seamlessly. I can go from Blender to Unreal, back to Cascador, whatever the hell it is, to animate, and then back to Unreal, and it's seamless. I don't have to worry about, oh, well, I gotta export it, and then I gotta tweak this thing in Blender, and then I gotta bring it back for it to work, and then once I get it into Unreal, I have to do it again, and that just absolutely kills momentum for me. It makes me not want to do the work anymore. Having additional tools inside of Unreal, especially a sculpting tool, I think is a win. I mean, maybe you're only going to use it once or twice because I feel like the character editing and stuff should stick within Blender or Maya, but maybe you'll use it and it'll be nice to make these little adjustments so that you don't have to go through the hassle of getting it back into another program. There's a couple times where I've adjusted weight paints within Unreal instead of having to get something back into Blender, adjust the weight paints and then re-export it. So it is nice having those tools. It's just another tool in the Batman utility belt of Unreal, which you may use, which you may not, but it's nice to have whether you need it or not. But they're integrating all this with the control rigs. You'll now be able to better implement physics on your control rigs. So think hair. They showed a lot of clothing demo. On their website, they're talking about ragdoll animations, such as characters falling down stairs, or subtle secondary motions, such as jiggling. And we all know what they mean by jiggling. But that's a nice to have. Use it, don't use it. it is nice to have. One of the other big things that they did was you're now going to be able to convert nearly any mesh to a metahuman. And the example they showed was this kind of vampire-like sculpture that they, I guess, just one for one went over a metahuman and converted it to a character right away, which I think is freaking awesome. When you're making stylized characters, you can sculpt your character and then apply it over a metahuman, so then you get the rig of a metahuman, but with your sculptured character. Super cool. The other thing that I saw that was really cool was the metahuman motion capture. We've seen that stuff with a lot of these AI third-party programs where you can just record a video of yourself and then that'll translate all the data over to your skeleton and then you're done animating, other than maybe some minor tweaks. But being able to do this all in Unreal, again, is just another utility to add to the massive utility belt of Unreal. The more tools they add is just more power for you and me. One of the things they're boasting too with that is, of course, there's no need for mocap rigs, there's no need for helmet cameras or markers. They're claiming that a webcam is enough to capture high quality head to toe animation. So for me, that's really cool, because one of the games that I want to go back and visit in my vampire series of horror games, and I kind of want to add more dynamic character conversations. I want my characters to have, I want you to be able to have a dialogue with them. I want them acting out a scene. Maybe they're loading a gun or cleaning a table or mopping a floor or something. I didn't want to invest in these mocap suits or these third-party programs if I didn't have to. So being able to do all of that in Unreal is just, for me, that is so freaking awesome. I mean, again, Unreal it's doing all the things right to power indie developers. They talked about their lighting, which Unreal Sensei did a fantastic job covering. They showed a really good Gears of War demo talking about lighting and dynamic fog. One of the other things they did was crowds, but metahuman crowds. And we're talking like thousands of people. I'm skeptical because I would really like to see how well that actually performs in game. I don't even know if that's what they're intending it to be used for. It is nice to see that they are taking all these features that all these indie developers are kind of making on their own and they're trying to get by, and then they're enhancing them and they're making them work within Unreal without having to enable these third-party plugins. They showed a new toon shader, which there's some people already messing around with the Substrate framework and they're coming up with some really good results. One of the things that I was looking into early on was toon shading, kind of like the pixel shading or cell shading as it's known. And you see all these plugins and it's very rare that people get good results, but this actually looks really good. And again, it's in engine, another slot on the tool belt. Now they announced a lot. I will link the article that goes to all of the main features on their website as well as the highlight video. Some of the things they didn't really talk about a lot, which was the release of Unreal 6. A lot of people are upset about. They released an article talking about it and they just kind of touched on a couple of the highlights. They're looking at releasing, like, I guess the beta versions of Unreal 6 towards the end of next year. A lot of people are really upset about that. I'm surprised they didn't provide any clarity on. So in Epic's words, talking about the road to Unreal Engine 6, to allow for, this is what they are saying. To allow for this, actors and blueprints will be in the early versions of UE6. Eventually, these will be deprecated when the new framework is sufficiently mature, and you'll have conversion tools to move these projects from one framework to another. So me and my brain, I don't even know what deprecated means. I had to Google it. Like, why of all words would you use that word? To deprecate something means to express strong disapproval of it or to recommend against its use. To recommend against its use. So essentially the way everybody is perceiving this is that they are sunsetting the blueprints, actors and blueprints from Unreal Engine, which is so weird considering this was the front runner for a lot of their stuff was, hey, we're starting a new visual scripting language, and literally throughout all of Unreal Engine 5, you bring on all of these newbies and these amateurs like us, and we all learned actors and blueprints. And now essentially what you're telling everybody is, hey, based on definition, we don't approve of it and we recommend against using it. It is wild to kind of shoot your entire fan base in the foot with that, at least the fan base that's using blueprints. Now, if you're a coder, if you're C++ and you're a heavy engineer, this doesn't bother you. And I can see where some of the engineers have come from where blueprints don't perform as well as actual hard code. But for a lot of us and our use cases, it's kind of minimal in terms of performance. Now, I won't say that for everybody, but I mean, we're all indies, we're all making indie games. You're not gonna notice if something's hard coded versus blueprinted. There's a lot of people pissed off about that. Some people are speculating that they are replacing blueprints with a visual interface for verse, which I know nothing about, but it kind of sounds like what they're doing is the next step in the evolution of blueprints. And that could be good, that could be bad. We don't know. Ideally, you would want it to be better, but it looks like everybody is perceiving this as a bad thing. The majority of people that I've seen complain about this are all perceiving this as bad. Now, of course, this wasn't announced in their massive showcase. This was in the articles that were released. I was seeing some people talk about using the verse coding system. I know nothing about it. There were people that I saw talking about how it is so much harder to use that than it is to use C++. That really concerns me because, again, like you, I have spent the last 4 years learning blueprints. I'm at a comfortable spot now where I can actually blueprint out almost everything on my own without having to go online and look up tutorials. It's really disappointing to hear that, hey, I spent all that time learning this just for them to say, well, we recommend against using it because we're gonna fucking sunset it. So I don't know. I feel like it's such a mistake for them to take it out back and shoot it like Old Yeller. Again, and we could be wrong. Maybe this is just an evolution for them to migrate it to a new system. Everybody is just really upset. There's more people that have just been saying, you know, Unreal Engine 6 just sounds bad and they're not a fan of the direction that it's going. And I can second that. I mean, if you guys saw the last 2 videos I did talking about it, there was really nothing exciting. There was nothing to take home to mom and show off. It was just really boring stuff. And again, they didn't really talk about it much, but look at all the stuff that they just released for 5.8 and compare that to what they talked about for 6. Why announce it? Why bring it up if you really have nothing to show for it? With the depressing news that they might be sunsetting blueprints, there is a silver lining, maybe a few silver linings in all of this. One of them, at least the major one, is that nobody has to upgrade to Unreal Engine 6. And we've seen that with our favorite example of Unreal Engine 6, Rocket League. They've been building out on Unreal Engine 3 for nearly a decade. So we can all stay on blueprints for the foreseeable decade before we need to convert or migrate things to something new. The second silver lining is one point that I saw everybody bring up that, well, if you've learned blueprints for this long, you know the majority of the foundation it takes to code. So if you really had to, learning how to code isn't that far off. If you're like me, you have an IT background, I've done coding in the past, I could look at code and it won't scare me off. Still looks like a foreign language, but for the most part, if I spend time looking at it, I will slowly understand it. But again, it's still really disappointing that they're kind of just killing off blueprints, or with the word that they used, they are expressing strong disapproval and recommend against using it, which I don't know. Like, why invest all of this time and the money and the promoting and getting indie developers to use it just to scrap it in the end? Unless I'm in the minority and I'm one of the few using blueprints, I don't know. Tell me, are you guys using C++ more than blueprints? Are you using blueprints more than code? Let me know, because I have no idea. Maybe I'm completely out of touch on all of this. But there were a few studios that I've interviewed for just game design positions or level design positions. And during the interview, I tend to ask a lot of questions, but during the interview, I asked about like their code and blueprints and things like that. And the majority of these studios, some of them were big, none of them are crazy AAA studios, but they were all big, 30, 40 person teams. The majority of them were all primarily blueprint based. Any of the ones that were not were either like 90-10 blueprint to code or 80-20 blueprint to code. The majority of these guys were primarily blueprint based. So for Unreal to kind of pull the rug out of everybody, I feel like like they are screwing a lot of studios over. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I have no idea. Unreal Engine 5.8 looks awesome. Do you need to upgrade? If something looks cool, sure. The problem with upgrading is all of the assets that I've downloaded and all of the plugins that I'm using, it takes time for those developers to get those to work for the next engine. Will I use 5.8 on my next game? Maybe. I've mentioned this before when I started using 5.6 as the newest, the hot thing. I can't import 3D models into 5.6. I have to migrate them from a different Unreal Engine version. So will I migrate? Should you migrate? I don't know. It might be fun to open it and play around and see if stuff works for you. But for me, I don't know. It looks cool. There's a lot of cool features. I am super excited for the procedurally generated tree growing. I don't know what it is about that, but that excited me the most. Everything else is just kind of icing on the cake, but the trees really sold me. I took a little break from working on my game. I've been kind of grinding away all day. I watched the state of Unreal and it was exciting. It was nice to watch. Is it stuff that I want to use? Not yet, but it is nice to know that it's there when I need it. That being said, I am going to go back to hurrying up and finishing my game. I'm going to dive into all of the blueprints and the massive spaghetti mess of blueprint nodes that I have and work on those while we still have them. Until then, I will catch you guys in the next video.